One of the things that we're stuck in is knowing how to take the challenges that we face and using those challenges to take us where we're supposed to go. Trust actually comes from another word, and it's called relationship.
Hey, welcome to another edition of the Journey to Freedom podcast. And as we do each time that we meet, is we get to interview some of the most interesting folks that are here in the world. At least in the United States. I know I did last week. I did a guy named Oddly. And oddly enough, I guess he was from Toronto, Canada. So just reaching out a little bit outside the United States, but family, a big part of the United States. Today, we have a true, I don't know how many folks we've done from Texas. I know we did my cousin, Chris Arnold. Coach, I don't know if you know this, but I probably didn't tell you that. My cousin is a sports broadcaster in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He had a show on K104 back in the, I guess, late 90s, 2000s, like the number one talk radio show. They had four folks that were on there that they nationally they were doing real well. Now he is the he does the voice. If you go to a Mavericks game, he works for the Mavericks organization now. So you'll hear his Chris Arnold is what his name is. And we did do a podcast for him. I did one with him, not for him. He did it for me more than anything. But so that's whenever I get down to Texas, it's usually always because of visiting and hanging out with my cousin. So just excited today as we continue to talk and continue to find people that are doing stuff in the community, that are doing stuff that are making a difference. And when I came across being able to talk with Coach Wilson here, we found out that we had some similarities, as we are both working to enhance the growth and to find out how we can make sure that Black men are getting the best that they can be and becoming the best that they can be. And whether we were doing mortgages at the same time or just, out there doing stuff in our community. He was telling me an interesting story about how he got named coach. I'll let him, share that story if he would like to be Coach Wilson. But at the same time, there are just some amazing things that he's able to do. And so I'm not going to take a whole lot of your time, and we can come back and, just continue to talk about and chop up just about all the different things and avenues that we both find in order to make this world a better place. And when we think about our journey to freedom, we know we're standing on the shoulders of giants. We know that there are people that have come before us who have given us the opportunity. One of the things I want to say before we even get going is thank you for your service. Thank you for being part of a military branch that, my dad was started out in the Navy, and then he went to the Air Force Reserves after that and stayed there as long as I can remember. Back in the day here in Denver, I got the opportunity. He had his once a weekend. He was a photographer. So, 1 week in a month when we would go down there, I guess in them days you could take your kids and I would climb on helicopters and, all kind of the easy fun stuff about being in the military, but just appreciate that you had a willingness to do what a lot of others won't do. And thank you for that. So Coach Wilson, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about who you are, and we'll just go from there.
All right. I was once asked a question, if you could describe yourself in one word, what would you describe yourself? And when this question was posed to me, I chose the B to represent the description of me. And here's what I know about the bee. The bee flies from flower to flower, taking the best part from each flower to make honey. And that's something that I try to do. I try to learn from everywhere. My mother instilled in me the desire to learn, And I'm wearing this get up right here, which I'm gonna take my hat off in just a minute. But this hat came from a conversation with my father. What you'll see on my cap is learners,
Uh-huh.
and what you'll see on my shirt is learn. And that's because learners learn. And in life, I aspire to be somebody that is a lifelong learner. I try to learn every single day. And so that is a little bit inside about me. But I am from Dayton, Ohio. Interesting fact, I have 8 sisters and 2 brothers. I'm a preacher's kid
Okay.
and lost one of my brothers when I was little. And it definitely had a traumatic impact on me losing my baby brother. And so it's kind of launched a lot of things in me from that point. And it took me a long time to deal with it, probably recently till about five, well, not five, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, where I actually, went full circle and really kind of addressed the trauma of losing my little brother when I was little. I spent 25 years in the military. I have a wife, 2 kids, 2 sons. And during my military time, just to fast forward it to my last assignment, as we were discussing, I was stationed in Hawaii. And I had the opportunity to serve a lot of historically Black organizations, Blacks in Government, NAACP, Masonic organizations, Divine Nine, etc. And working with them, I helped them with event promotion and fundraising. And so being the community that I'm from and a part of, Black folks like to give you nicknames. And so
Mhm.
2009, one of the most popular songs out was My Name is Charlie, last name Wilson. And my first name is Charles, and my last name is Wilson. So half of the people start calling me Charlie Wilson, and the other half start calling me Coach because of the way that I assisted their organization. And so I knew that one of those nicknames was going to stick, and I didn't want it to be Charlie. Coach Wilson was born, and that's how the name got started. And I've always been in and around business, from my military job to my personal aspirations to growing up the son of a small business owner myself.
Oh, that's cool. That is awesome. When I think about, just some of the things you said, and one of the questions I love to ask, and sometimes it's the beginning of the interview, sometimes it's the end, because I don't believe, and just from having a brief conversation with you, is that we are what we do, our profession. I think we are what we allow ourselves to do for others and how we serve. Um, I don't know why I just think that all the time, but when you talk about you being part of a big family, and then you talk about having 2 sons, what does it mean to be a dad? What is in your life in the time that you've been able to do it? Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
So being a dad is something, I wouldn't necessarily say that, I just said, hey, I wanted to be a dad, but I did feel like if I was a dad, I wanted to have some sons. And that's probably um, greatest joys, and to a degree, some of my greatest challenges as well. And so I think, yeah, it's wonderful to be able to pass the baton, I mess with my dad all the time. I'm glad to have him still living, but I mess with him all the time because when I call him and I talk to him, he's a Church of God in Christ preacher to his core. And so when I call him, I'll always call him Father, and that's spelled either Farther or either Further. But I don't call him Father. I call him Father.
Mhm.
And the reason why I do that is because I believe that as a father, it is your duty to father
Mhm.
your family tree to further the communities that you reside. And so that's something that's real important to me in the way that that's done. My dad, he's always done the best he could, with what he knows, and what he had. But it's my job to pick up the ball and keep running farther down the road. And hopefully, I'm able to do the same with my son. I'm able to give them the ball and instill in them what they need to pick up the ball, to take the baton and carry it the next leg of the race.
And there's so much in there to unpack. And one of the things that I know, I mean, we haven't had this conversation yet, but I just know this about you after talking to you for just a few minutes. In your mentorship capacity, which I
Mhm.
know you've had a lot of, and talking with Black men,
Mhm.
and I'm just assuming that you've helped or not only been an example, but help talk about fatherhood to some of the Black men. What are some of the advice or some of the things that you were able to impart? Because, and the reason I bring this out so heavily is in the last few conversations I've had, I've realized how much it means for the kids to have a dad. I mean, I think that's just well known. Children growing up need parents, they need a dad, they need an example, they need this. But beyond that is how much we need to be a dad. When we have the opportunity, like once we've had a child, we know that, to provide and to protect and to be an example and to help grow and to help some of the most successful men, at least the ones that I've been interviewing and the ones that we've been talking through, have all been, when they've had kids. There's been a few who haven't had kids, but for the ones who have, they all talk about being a dad and what it meant to be a dad. And there's a theme that keeps happening there as to the ones who haven't, that maybe didn't do what they thought they should have done as a dad, and then where they're at in life. And so that's why I'm asking you, what's some of that advice that they might have come to you and you were able to
So,
step up. Yeah.
you know, um, it's really interesting that this conversation is taking this turn. But a lot of times what I find is, by and large, and I create an organization called Brothers Helping Brothers, to kind of address this. But what I find is a lot of times the Black men that I've encountered, they don't ask. And I myself didn't ask either. And so, in a sense, you know, um, probably offer unsolicited advice.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be good and bad. But more directly, um, I would say that I really talk about presence, um, associations are key to fatherhood. Who you're around and you're present, and then really preparation. Fatherhood is a job of preparing, is what I would say. Now, just to be frank, um, I haven't been able to achieve all of those things yet. I told you I spent 25 years in the military, and people talk about your service and your sacrifice, but one of my biggest sacrifices, even though my sons grew up with two parents, quote unquote, I wasn't always there. I was gone a lot. And that's probably one of my biggest regrets of my military service is how much I was in and out, in and out, in and out. Um, so for me, they don't ask a lot, like, what I need to do to be a father. I really don't get that question a lot. But what I noticed when I got back, one of my big desires once I retired was I don't have a relationship I didn't have a relationship with my sons the way I wanted to have it. I didn't have it with my nephews the way that I wanted to have it. And so I started an organization called Brothers Helping Brothers, and it's an informal organization, no real structure to it. But what it's designed to do, our mission is for one brother to help another brother along the way, and it comes from the mantra of Dr. Martin Luther King, who said, "If I can just help somebody along the way." And so as I try to reach out to my nephews and reestablish this relationship for this uncle that they only saw on special occasions, or this dad who they saw in between, crisscrossing the country and the world with military service. I said, let me try to, rekindle this relationship. And I learned something, and I actually experienced it myself as a man. When you have a father that's present, a lot of times, my experience is, they're going to do a lot of correcting. And for me, what I found myself doing and what I found my sons doing is after a while, I turned my dad off. And after a while, I feel like my sons turned me off too.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I said was, well, how did I stay on track? And the way that I stayed on track is because I had a few good men along the way that would nudge me in the right direction to keep me on track. And so I would listen to these men because it wasn't my nagging dad.
Mm-hmm.
These were, brothers that I connected with, obviously they were older than me. And I would listen to them. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take the same formula and I'm going to start helping other, young men and men this way. And I started with my sons and my nephews, and I would just send them, different information through text, um, information that I found that could benefit from them, or things that I learned that could benefit them. And then as I started to, break through barriers with them, I started to notice that the biggest influence is outside of the home. So if I want to influence my nephews, if I want to influence my sons, then it'd probably be a good idea for me to influence the people that they're hanging around.
Mm.
So I started to pull them into the fold and started to develop relationship with them, because now I'm giving it to you, but I'm also giving it to your friends, and your friends might not have what you have, and your friends, they'll hear the information differently. And in many cases, they'll bring them the same message that I'm giving you. They'll bring that message back to you, and it'll be more effective. Because see, here's the thing. I don't care who you get help from. I just want you to get the help.
Mm.
You don't have to hang the mantle on me, that, I provided the answer or the solution. If you get the answers that you need to grow and develop and be successful, that's what I'm most happy about. It don't have to be me. And so I realize that sometimes when you have that person that's right there, they're not always listened to. And so if I can reinforce what my friend's father would want to say to his son, if I can reinforce it coming from somebody that, they like, but I'm not in the house, I'm not always on their back, then I do that, and it's really allowed me to really help not only my sons and my nephews, but their friends as well. And so I've grew that from about 5 or 10 individuals to just text messages to a private Facebook group with about 300 or so men in it, where, again, the goal is for one brother to help another brother along the way.
And I love that. I love the thought of, and I had never thought about that, is how do I influence the people that are already influencing my sons, that are already influencing the people around me? Not in any bad way, just, how do I make sure I know what they're about? I know what they're thinking. I know what the things that they're telling, whether your kids or neighborhood kids or kids you care about, that, when you think about, that just came into my mind. You think about the gang relationships and how gangs flourish so well. It's a lot of what you just talked about. It's a lot about everybody knows what everybody else is doing in that community, and all those gang members know what each other's doing, and then they start relying on each other. So, I love the fact that you've taken that to another level. When we talk about identity and who we are, and you begin to talk about associations a little bit, and I've always been taught that who you are is, and who you hang around with is kind of who you are. I mean, what do you have to say about how helping create identities, but not just identities, because we all have one, but ones that can help us move forward and flourish?
So a lot of it, I've really thought a lot about it. A lot of it has to do with imagery, how we see ourselves, our self-esteem, and then how others see us, as well as, you know, how others see us as well. And so the thing that I would say about that is that we need positive imagery. And so, for example, there's this anti-woke thing that's going on across the country, which is, to me, is kind of ridiculous. Why would anybody want to be asleep? And so I think, and I can understand some of what they say. And so I would love to have a trade-off where, okay, we won't talk about some of the injustices of the past. I actually do agree to a certain perspective that does some damage. I think history is still necessary, good, bad, and ugly, but it does certain damage in our community. But I don't think that people would agree to the trade-offs. See, if we could see ourselves based on more than civil rights and slavery, then I think that would do a lot to uplifting us, because it's hard, even in business, you know, it's hard to make $1 million if you can't see yourself making $1 million. It's hard to make six figures if you can't see yourself making six figures. And so you have to see it before you can see it, or you never will see it. And when it comes to our association, I think one of the biggest things is our people have a history of greatness, but it's hidden from us. Mm-hmm. And that predates America. That predates our journey and experience in America. And so if we could emphasize, the accomplishments that we made, the first civilization, the civilization that all civilizations learn from. If we could show that, not people that were bad at math, but people that created mathematics. Yes. If we could teach those things, and then if we could teach, a lot of the things that we've done in this country, in this great country, then I think that would do a lot to lift our self-image and our self-esteem. And so if we lift our self-esteem and our image, then that changes, because a lot of times, unfortunately, it's people see you the way you see yourself. Mm-hmm. And, it's almost like a dog that senses fear. It's not even anything that's spoken, but they can tell. It's just the energy that they can tell that, you don't see yourself, not as better than somebody, but as somebody. And so people treat us accordingly. And to a large part, I think that's been by design and is indirectly still by design.
Yeah, so as I'm thinking about, the things that you're saying, and it's so important, and, the damage that can be done, part of the Journey to Freedom program, and the reason we're going to Alabama is because to show the greatness that came from there. We hear so much, and we can watch, a film where fire hoses or bombings are happening or lynchings were happening, and we go, oh, that's our past. But the greatness that came out of it, I was watching, I think it was even yesterday, I was watching 60 Minutes, and they were talking about the, WNBA and, the league that the women are now getting their accolades, the people are showing up to events. And then they said that, they brought up that 80% of the athletes are Black. And you say, well, what was expected 200 years ago when they put the best of the best were able, or 400 years ago, the best of the best were what made it over in the on slave ships. Others didn't make it. Then you breed, slaves with different slaves, and that are the best of the best. And you create a society of pretty strong athletic people. And then you give them the opportunity to be that. You go, okay, so what do you expect? What was that came from it? But then, the same thing happened with, I think like Frederick Douglass, right? Who knew how important it was to read.
Yes.
Because he said, well, if it's that important
to read.
Yeah. Well, he realizes if they're trying to stop me because it was the slave master's wife that started teaching him reading, and he caught her doing it and said, you can never let these folks read, because if they read and they learn how to read, then they won't want to do what we're asking them to do anymore. And so they took that away from him, and he took every scrap of piece of paper that he could based on what he had learned, and learned how to read, and became one of the greatest orators, of our time. And you start thinking, somebody told me, probably years ago, that said, if I'm the smartest person in any room that I'm in, then I'm in the wrong room. And so you start thinking about, the stuff that you've put together, and the brothers helping brothers, and, learning this is where we can go to. This is where we can achieved to. Now one of the themes that comes up in this conversation a lot is I saw somebody that did it. I saw a Barack Obama, or I saw a Dr. So-and-so, or I saw, an astronaut, or
It's
I saw.
so crazy that you would say that. Again, if you can see it, then you can believe it. And I can remember when Barack Obama became president, and some people got all up in arms because what was considered normal, they didn't want it to be normal, and that was we've all been in class coming up through elementary school, middle school, and high school, and something happens, and the president comes on the TV all across the country, in the schools. And what happens, what's so significant about that happening in school is it normalizes a behavior. It normalizes people seeing a Black person as the president of the United States. And I believe they got up in arms because they didn't want that to be normalized to future generations. And so,
Yeah, no, it is. You start thinking about the possibilities, and, right as we're filming this, we may have, our first woman president being a Black woman, and so something that, if, you would have said even 75 years ago that was even a possibility.
I probably would have said that in the early 90s. Yeah, I would have said that in the early 90s. I can remember just having a sense of pride just to have a Black commander, low-level commander in the military, because it wasn't something, in my experience that I was used to seeing, and so I never would have imagined that we would get to this point where we had a Black president. Now, people really understanding that the advantages and limitations of that is a different story.
Mm-hmm. Well, then just to kind of capstone it, you think of our next generation, right? So Barack Obama becomes president. His daughter's now 25 years old, worth over $100 million. So,
know that. Wow.
Making films and doing stuff and what's available. So when I say those words, when I say journey to freedom, and you hear those words, what comes to your mind?
The process, the part in the middle before we get to freedom.
What is freedom?
So I believe it's different for different people. For me, I think it evolves around choice. The choice to do what I want, when I want, how I want, where I want, providing that choice doesn't infringe upon others. But considering all those things, the choice to be able to do those things and not having issues with anything that would interfere with that, be that money, or be that the way people might see me, but just having that freedom to choose.
When I think about there are constructs or things in society that we have to adhere to in order for us to be a society that works and that we can live together in
Right.
peace. You can't just go do what you want when you want how you want. There
Right.
are some rules if you choose to be part of that society. I
Mhm.
guess for me, the part of the freedom that exists is being able to choose to be part of that society. I have the ability to choose within the constructs of what that is, what I want to be, how I want to be, where I want to go, as I do it, and without somebody trying to hurt me along the way, getting up there. I guess you can't stop people. There's always going to be evil in the world. There's always going to be, as long as we're on the planet the way that we are, there are going to be, people who just hate just because they don't have a reason.
I think there's going to be evil and there's going to be challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenges are what it takes to build us up. And so I'm not necessarily mad about the challenges that we face. What I'm probably more concerned with is how we respond and what we do with these incredible opportunities that we have from that. So when you're in order to make something new, so to speak, you gotta break it down, and usually that comes in the form of a challenge. And so when you join the military takes you through an initiation process. And that initiation process is called basic training. And through that basic training, they break you down and then they build you up. And so I think the challenges that we face have broken us down, and we have to build ourselves up. And probably one of the things that we're stuck in is knowing how to take the challenges that we faced and using those challenges to um, take us where we're supposed to go. So if you could picture in your mind the Karate Kid, um, he spent a lot of time wax on, wax off,
Mm-hmm.
um, painting the fence up and down. And, in doing this process, this painful process over time, he was developing skills, but he had no idea what he was developing skills for. And I think that's where we're at. We've been developing skills, but we have no idea, what we're developing the skills for, how we apply, what we've learned from this experience. And I think, you know, we're looking for that Mr. Miyagi moment.
Yeah, yeah. I think we all do. We all we deserve to have a Mr. Miyagi helping us get through it. I think that's the where we that gap between equality and equity that um, seems to be. And I want to ask you, I want to dive deeper into equity and equality. But when I think about the military and you serving 25 years and the word trust. And I think as a soldier, I believe, because I haven't personally been a soldier, but believe that you have to be able to trust the man that's next to you no matter what, because your life could be on the line. And what are some of the things that you either personally had developed, that the military had to develop in you, this belief that I trust you because whatever.
So I think that trust actually comes from another word, and it's called relationships. And the reason why I would say that is because, you know, there's a lot of hype and hyperbole about, the flag and this, that, and the other. But when you get in the heart of the battle, when you get in these situations, I don't think people are really thinking about that. My experiences in combat, what I'm thinking about is my brother to the left or right. And the reason why I would call them my brother is because we have a relationship. See, we all went to basic training. So that allowed us to connect because we all had that same shared experience. Then we've worked together, we've played together, we've seen each other's families, and at the lower levels, obviously not at the super high level because they're not actually out there fighting physically. You're doing what you're told, and you want to make sure that your brother to the left or your sister to the right makes it back home, as well as yourself. And so that's about a relationship. And through that relationship, you build trust. You're counting on me to know my job and do my job, so that, we can execute our mission at a high level. And if we execute our mission at a high level, a part of the planning for that mission will give us the best chance of making it back and making it back.
So is that relationship you're talking about, and that being able to trust and trying to duplicate that in civilian life, in our lives here, and duplicating trust in somebody? Is there a level of trust that has to come before you can develop the relationship? Or do you don't trust until a relationship is built? How do we do that?
So I think trust starts at connection.
Mm-hmm.
And some people, that's probably one of the challenges on the civilian side, I would say, is some people are more transactional than they are relational.
Mm-hmm.
And so the transactional piece will benefit, the right now. I'm paying you to do a job, you do the job. But the problem with that scenario is sometimes challenges come. And depending on the level of relationship, it probably will play a role in the extent or the level I'm going to go to make sure, for example, something happens for you, the risk that I'm going to be willing to take for you, because we have a relationship. If it's a transaction, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I tried, it didn't work. Here's your money, and off to the next one. So I think it's a little bit harder, because we don't always have that same relationship and that same connection. I think it can be built. I think it is built a lot of times on the civilian side as well. But the military probably has an intentional development of it.
Yeah. Well, you're almost forced to be in relationship. Like, we're going to put you in this room together. where for however long we are going to do it. So you're either not going to talk to the person for however long, or you're going to figure out how to create relationships where we can't do that. And like, yeah, I don't want my neighbor. I'm going to open my garage door. As soon as I pull in, I'm going to shut it. I don't ever have to talk to her, right? To develop that relationship. I want to talk about health a little bit, and both physical and mental health, and what do we need to do? If the life expectancy of a Black man is 72 years old,
Mhm.
how do we increase that? What are some of the things we need to do? And I know a lot of that also is determined on our mental health and how we take on trauma, how we let trauma go away or get out of our systems and the chemical aspect with it. What's your suggestion, or what have you learned over your years that can help us be healthier, both mentally and physically?
So, relationships and food. Being
And
relationships
the two together, right?
and food. Yeah. Relationships and food, and relationship with food. So, our relationship with food and our relationships in relating to the everyday challenges. That's like a part of what I believe that causes that is we're so busy living that we're not living.
Mm,
So
yeah.
in that, there's so many different things that we face, different challenges that we encounter, and we're living and dealing with those challenges. And probably more so what we need to do is to slow down and actually, come up with some processes and systems to deal with those challenges, so that we can really live.
Gotcha. I love it because when I think about our health and the amount of stress that we put on to our lives, when I think of even in our conversation before, when I think of social media, how do you trust in social media, or are you stressed all the time because of the 1 minute reel? How do you begin to create relationships with social media when everything is so thick? We put on, like, how do I control what's happening in in Israel right now, all the way across the world? I'm not in the military, and yet our news cycles are showing me and telling me I need to have to worry about this struggle in my life right now. And I have all these issues that are at home, and I'm now trying to figure out how I'm going to help anybody that's on that side of the world because of our news cycles and social media and all those things. Um,
I think in that itself, this kind of goes to knowledge, and I'm going to say miseducation,
mhm.
from the standpoint of, I think a lot of times we're naive and maybe overly trusting, but when you start to look at things, you can see parallels that play across. So, for example, when you talk about social media, it's conditioning. Um, you know, there's little things that they used to say that we really probably didn't pay attention. Television program.
Programming.
It is programming. And then also when you look at social media, it's a lot of very smart psychologists that understand that repetition is the mother of all learning, and they understand how dopamine works, and they're able to curate this experience for us all. Um, and then through repetition, they're able to condition as well as predict, to a fairly proficient level, outcomes of different things just based on that. And I believe that that type of stuff is applied in so many spectrums. And so of our lives, same concept, conditioning, programming, um, you know.
So what do we do about it?
Um,
Awareness obviously is part of it.
yeah. Awareness is a big part of it, and then counter programming. So
Okay.
I think going back to something you said previously, reading is huge, and just kind of paying attention to it. I think music also plays a big part in conditioning, and so from the when you talk about the young adult and preteen, um, I would probably say some abstinence from that type of stuff would be effective. To allow the mind to develop to where it could keep what it is in its proper place. I mean, a lot of it is designed to be entertainment, but what's entertainment for some, can be literal for others. And so, if you're developed enough, then you'll have the capacity to deal with it. And then also just understanding that no matter who you are, um, everybody's influenced, and just some are influenced more than others. And so,
Absolutely. There's a couple more questions that I have. One of the when we talk about faith, you talked about your dad being a pastor from the Church of God in Christ in Dayton, Ohio. That has to have an influence on your life and what you are, but not just necessarily talking about religion, but obviously as faith as well, and how it's played a part in your identity, who you are, and who you continue to become. Maybe you can give us some insights into that.
into faith, I don't know. Faith is just about, for me, it's about believing, um, things that hasn't happened, believing things that you want to happen. And one of the key components to faith, I believe, is work or action. If you believe that, you can win the race, then you have to go out and do it. And so probably one of my biggest examples of that, when I was about 16, 17 years old, I set a record in the state of Ohio. I believe it still exists. They have an organization called Buckeye Boys State. And I believe they do it across the country, but it's called different things in different states. And they basically bring high school juniors, they do it for males and they do it for females. They bring them to a college campus. It's about a 3-4 day experience. And a part of that process, when I went, it was about 1,500 boys. And you run for political office, and you run for every office in the state, all the way up to governor. And when I got selected to go to this camp, I guess I'll call it, I was in a reform school in Ohio, and we had a priest, and I was talking to the priest, and in my mind, I was like, I want to be the governor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked him, I was like, hey, what do I need to do to be the governor? And he said, I'm going to tell you what you do. He said, from the time we drop you off at the bus stop, you start shaking hands and you tell everybody, that you want to be the governor. And so I didn't know anything contrary. That's what he told me to do. And so from the time I got to that bus stop, I shook every hand. When we got to the school, we went to Bowling Green University. When we got to Bowling Green University, I shook over 14 hands in about 36 hours. And I told them all, my name is Charles Wilson. I'm running for governor, elect me. And when they took the vote, I won with 70% of the vote. I convinced, 70% of 1,500 boys to vote for me in about 48 hours. People that I didn't know. I went to the bus stop with one person I knew that came from the same place as me and nobody else that I know. And I believed that if I did what the priest from the school told me to do, that it would happen. And I had no doubt, and I just did it, and it happened. And yeah, I was able to do that. Had a white lieutenant governor, and I was the governor, and we was salt and pepper.
And you changed the world. I love it. I love it.
So,
What did I not talk about today that you wanted to make sure that we talked about, or we let folks know that are going to watch this at some point?
Let me see. I'm trying to look at some of the questions. I think we actually we got going on the track, and I think we went away from the changes, the questions that we had discussed. But
we didn't talk about money, but we talked about trust, faith, health, finance, or not finance, identity. We talked a little bit about trauma, and I don't know if there's too much of anything. Talked about freedom, talked about being a dad. So we got there. So, but the thing we didn't talk about is money. And if you want to share anything about finances or what to do in that, for folks there, please feel more than welcome to do that. But
so I'm going to start it off by just saying that I believe on our journey to freedom, we've got to change the vision and the image of how we see ourselves. There's a big imbalance in that. And as a result of not seeing ourselves the right way, it subtly influences us, So I do some coaching now, and one of the things that I've been taught in coaching is you reward the good behavior, and so if you got salespeople that are doing good, you praise those, and you don't even mention the ones that are doing bad, and subtly what that infers is you need to get your game up, and so when it comes to our image, by not having, some of the great things that we've done as a people, first and foremost, it subtly basically shows. It says without saying that, we haven't really contributed. So that's huge, and so the richest man to ever live, Mansa. I forget the African country that he was out of, but we're not taught about that, and so when it comes to economics and growth, I do think that we as a people definitely need economic empowerment, and we need to start having these conversations young about money, financial literacy, about starting businesses. And in that process, we got to understand that most things are intertwined. And so right now, to a degree, we're shifting towards business, and that's very important. But I think we can't leave the political side alone. To address what ails us, it's like baking a cake. And when you bake a cake, there's always some core ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And two of the core ingredients that we have, or some of the core ingredients, is our health is one of our core ingredients, physical and mental health, our economics,
Mm-hmm.
our political involvement, and our spiritual involvement. Now, any one of those you can't bake a whole cake with. Like if you're baking a cake, you can't bake a cake with eggs and water and sugar and no flour.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And if you eat flour by itself,
Ooh.
The cake ain't gonna taste that good. And so any one of these is not gonna be the be all or end all. They're not going to take care of everything, but they are important ingredients in the process. And so we have to play a part in all of those, not just one of them. We can't get just top heavy in one. We gotta, have those four pillars of foundation. Because our health, our spirituality, our economics or finance, and then our involvement in politics, because that's where the rules are made. So we definitely need that.
That is so true. Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you for being willing to come on, because I learned a lot. I got, all these pages of notes that I took that, just from things that you said that I think I can take with me. I appreciate you, Brothers Helping Brothers, and learning more about that, and would love to, share that with people and learning. You're right. I love putting that back on.
Yes,
education is such a key. The more that we learn, the more that we can grow, and the closer that we can become to freedom. I absolutely 100% believe that. And it's not just the knowledge that we learn going to school and in books, of what's happened in the past. It's the learners of what's happening now, and then how do we react to it. If we can learn better how to react to situations as they come and get better and better at that, I think that changes everything. And some of the reasons that we are in some of the situations we are is because we don't react very well. We haven't learned through our past experiences how to react to stuff, and it just comes on us and hurts us. And so, like I said, thank you for being on. Thank you for being part of just another episode of our program. For those of you who are watching, I know you got something out of it. Go ahead and click the bell or the subscribe button, because the more folks that we have to get together that, like Coach Wilson or Charlie Wilson said, is that the better we are together. So the more and together that we are, the better our relationships are. And the better that our relationships are, the more that we can achieve whatever we want. And we don't leave one man behind. We help everybody move forward. We help everybody, like you said, the person on the right, the person on the left, all gets out of here ahead. So again, thank you for being part of this. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Until then, know that you are God's greatest gift, and He loves you if you allow Him to. We'll talk to you on the next one.
Bye for now.